"This is a tough course, so it's important to practice first," said Mr. Beaker. "I'll give you all 5 minutes to discuss with your teams, and then we'll begin." Rachel and Trusty's team decided that Amina would go first, Adam second, Trusty third, and Rachel fourth. Their team color was purple, so Amina picked up a purple beanbag and set off around the cones. "Wait," cried Trusty, "they are going the wrong way." But Amina didn't hear her, because all the teams were yelling at the top of their lungs. The beanbag slipped off Amina's head, and she picked it up, but she had only gone a few steps before it fell off again. "No," cried Adam. Suddenly Amina realized that she was going the wrong way around the cones. She turned around and headed back in the opposite direction, and then the beanbag slipped off her head again. Adam groaned, and the girls bit their lips. They couldn't help but notice that the first goblin had already reached the end of the cone. Somehow he had managed to balance the beanbag on his heads without dropping it once. At last Amina reached the end of the cones and ran over to Adam to attack Adam. He sprinted towards the bucket full of basketballs and grabbed a purple one. He aimed at the basketball hoop, but it went straight up in the air and came down on his hand. "Ow!" he yelled. He grabbed the ball and aimed it at the basket again. This time it flew over the top of the basket and hit the second goblin on the shoulder. He was fiddling with one of his sneakers, and he gave a loud squawk. The ball bounced away into a muddy ditch. "This is strange," said Amina. "Adam's really good at basketball. He usually never misses a shot." The second goblin had fixed his sneaker and then thrown the basketball through the hoop on his first try, but Adam had to try 6 times before he succeeded. Red in the face, he tagged Kirsty, who picked up a jump rope. She was usually good at jumping rope, but after just 5 jumps, the rope got tangled around her legs. "I guess I didn't jump high enough," she thought. But when she tried again, she dropped one of the handles. "You can do it, Kirsty," Rachel called in an encouraging voice. Kirsty picked up the rope to try again, but after 15 jumps, the rope hit the back of her head and she lost her balance. She felt her cheeks turning red. The first goblin was next to her, pulling at one of his sneakers. Then he started jumping so fast that the rope was just a blur. "What's wrong with me today?" Kirsty muttered under her breath. She looked around to see the other teams were looking at her, but to her surprise, they all looked just as confused and worried. Everyone was having problems with the obstacle course. One team was still on the beanbag section. Kirsty took a deep breath and concentrated on jumping. This time she managed to reach 20, although she tripped over her own feet when she ran over to tag Rachel. She glimpsed Mrs. Beth shaking her head and making more notes on her clipboard. Even though the goblins had finished jumping rope first, they were both doing something with their sneakers. "It's lucky they don't have shoelace-up sneakers to slow them down," said Kirsty. Rachel and the second goblin dived under the low net at exactly the same time. Rachel dragged herself along on their elbows. This was something that she had done many times, but suddenly she felt as if she had forgotten how to crawl. Her elbows ached and the finish line seemed to be miles away. The second goblin was already a long way ahead of her. Suddenly Rachel felt a tug on her foot and realized that one of her sneakers was caught in the netting. Nearby she could see the children having problems too. Some of them were still on the basketball challenge. Mrs. Bass was shaking her head again and taking even more notes. Just then the goblin stumbled under the finish line and jumped up and down, cheering. Mrs. Bass smiled for the first time, and Rachel heard her speak to Mr. Beaker. "At least some of your students are satisfactory," she said. "Those boys in green are excellent." Rachel looked at her foot. It was so tangled in the netting that she knew she couldn't get it out by herself. "Mr. Beaker," she called out, "I'm stuck." Mr. Beaker came to help her, and Mrs. Bass followed him. "It's almost as if they've never had a gym class before," she said. "What have you been teaching them?" Mr. Beaker helped Rachel to her feet, looking flustered. "They have regular classes," he told the inspector. "They all have satisfactory gym skills. I don't understand what's going wrong today." "We are usually much better," said Rachel. "Please will you give us another chance?" Mr. Bass looked at her watch. "It's almost time to go," she said. "I will give your class another chance first thing tomorrow morning. I hope things will have improved by then."